been hard at work seeking engagements and engaging the Trump administration at various levels, admittedly not at the most senior levels, but there have been engagements, mostly spearheaded by Ambassador Rasool. And we will continue focusing on the opportunity to reset the relationship. It is an important strategic, political, and trade relationship that we want to maintain. And there are areas of convergence and alignment that we want to focus on and build on.
Can we, how easy is it to resuscitate this relationship? It looks like the United States, they're at their wits' end. They've ended their tether. They're angry with South Africa. How do you get around this?
Well, we're looking forward to the opportunity to even understand that anger and where it comes from. All we have as a point of reference are social media posts. We've not had an opportunity at the most senior level to have a better contextual understanding as to what informs the latest posture that we've witnessed from the United States. Be that as it may, ours is to look at areas where we can converge, where we can find each other, and take this relationship forward. I don't have to repeat the obvious, Ray, with respect to how important it is for both countries to sustain a mutually beneficial relationship.
Sure.
So we will be hard at work to ensure that we resuscitate it. Diplomacy, Ray, is not an event; it's a process, and it's a process that we will, patiently undertake.
It looks like diplomacy, though, has been short-circuited here. On the one hand, we've got Ebrahim Rasool and his comments. On the other hand, we got Minister Ronald Lamola, who he stated that the proper channels were not followed. How should the Trump administration have handled this situation? Because X is not the platform for diplomacy, I would think.
Indeed, Ray, from the beginning of the year, when executive orders were being issued against South Africa, one immediately observed that the communication was outside of what one will normally regard as established diplomatic channels or protocols of communicating. However, we have to adapt. We've observed a similar dynamic with America's closest allies. We're not the only ones here, and we shouldn't single ourselves out as victims that are being targeted by the U.S. We've seen Mexico, Canada, even Europe experience the kind of backlash that is uncommon between the United States and those traditional allies. So what we have to do is to adapt and stick to our principles with respect to being constructively engaged with the U.S. and do our best to take the relationship forward.
But you must have been mortified on Friday. These comments that were made by Ebrahim Rasool, I would think that President Cyril Ramaphosa would have done a double take.
Well, Ambassador Rasool is an experienced diplomat. This was his second tour to the United States. I think he will have a moment to reflect on his experience as well as the incident or the developments that have led to the current state of affairs. We can spend a lot of time conducting a postmortem on that, or we can spend more time and our energies focusing on what do we need to do to reset the relationship, number one. Number two, what is the substance of that reset that we can establish commonality with the Trump administration, particularly on the trade front, because we've noticed and observed that President Trump is keen to earn a favorable deal for his country, just as President Ramaphosa is keen to engage in negotiations for what would be a favorable deal for South Africa.
Yeah, all right. Perhaps two questions. Has a decision been made on Ebrahim Rasool's replacement, number one? And then, of course, we've got our GNU delegation that's supposed to leave for the US. Those are two things that we possibly can use to steady the ship. Has there been any discussion or decision on either of those?
Well, the process is underway, right, for the Department of International Relations and Cooperation to compile a list of recommendations that it will submit to the President for his consideration So that process is already underway. With respect to the delegation, the president is on record saying at this stage it will not be prudent to hastily dispatch a delegation to Washington when we have not done enough preparatory work on the ground. That's number one. Number two, when the work is still in its infancy with respect to the formulation of the trade deal proposal, because we feel we need to go there when we have something of substance that we can engage over. To go to Washington just to merely register protest and to explain ourselves on issues that we believe are well known and they're well understood will not be productive.
Looking at the posture, we've taken their main ally, Israel, to the International Court of Justice. We have been playing up relations with Iran and Russia. They have also been in Santon, the consulate there. We've tried to rename the road after a Palestinian activist and hijacker. Do you not think that they're going to turn around and say to us, we don't like your policies, we don't want to trade with you?
Well, you've raised a lot of issues, and I'll try and just deal with them quickly. On the renaming of that road, there are engagements underway to get the leadership in Johannesburg to reconsider that process, and we'll see what that outcome is. With respect to the relationship with Iran, that has unfortunately been slightly exaggerated in terms of what that relationship is. You reference Russia. Right now, if you observe objectively, you realize that it is the U.S. that has gravitated much closer towards Russia than it has done so towards Ukraine. And we've always maintained a non-aligned stance with respect to that conflict. The ICJ is an international legal instrument that is at the disposal of every country or every member state that feels that a genocide is being committed. So we've opted for a peaceful and legal approach in intervening in that conflict. Be that as it may, it does not put us or place us in a position of being an enemy towards Israel. We do have an issue with the state of Israel with respect to its behavior in Gaza, and we've utilized established peaceful and legal means to do so.
All right, so we'll have to leave it there. Vincent Magwenya, thank you so much for coming on, though. Presidency spokesperson. Let's stay with this story. Dr. Kingsley Makhubela joins us now, the former ambassador to Portugal and Kenya, also a risk analyst as well. Dr. Kingsley, good morning. Good to have you on 702. Your reaction to what's happened. I mean, you've been an ambassador. Did you cringe, or did you think, hold on a second, the right processes haven't been followed yet, leave Ebrahim Rasool alone?
Good morning, Ray. There are two issues when looking at this matter of Ebrahim Rasool. There are challenges with respect to American policies, starting with the Biden administration, what Vincent was talking about. They've had this view that South Africa acts against the American interest internationally. But there are issues relating to the behavior of the ambassador, which is totally separate. And I don't think for now one would like to discuss policy issues of the U.S. because we can carry on the whole day. But the behavior of the ambassador and the utterances were really unacceptable in any diplomatic function. For the ambassador really to describe the president as a supremacist, it was very serious.
Yeah. I mean,
I tried, Ray, to look into the definition in the dictionary, which says it's a person who believes that a particular group, especially one determined by race, religion, or sex, is superior and should therefore be dominant in the society.
Sorry, if I could just come in there, Dr. Kingsley Makhubela. You have been an ambassador. I mean, there's sort of training that goes with this. Is it because maybe perhaps Mr. Rasool is a politician who's got into the situation? But normally you get training around diplomacy.
Ray, there's been I think system flaws within the Department of International Relations. I have 3 weeks ago, I was very critical of Rasool's utterances and reference to Trump. And I said it's unpalatable for an ambassador to describe the president in that manner. So the question is that when Rasool participated in this webinar, and was that cleared in terms of the content of what he's going to say? Rasool has been focusing on speaking to the South African constituency, which is not his function. There's a function of DECO here. He must speak to the American constituency. That's his function. That's why he's sent there. Once he started venturing into the domestic space, the lingo, the language, everything used here is so polarized. And he got involved in that. He got entangled in that and used the language that as a sitting ambassador he shouldn't have used to describe the president that he's accredited to.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we are pushed for time. We'll have to leave it there. Dr. Kingsley Makhubela, former ambassador to Portugal and Kenya, also a risk analyst. Thank you so much for coming on to 702. 702 Land, your reaction, 072 702 1702.
Current events, developing stories,
tough questions.
Your voice making a difference.
This is Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa.